Hello, Iris J here with Madrona's Pulse Teachings, Astrology for Healing. I am talking with you from my Urban Rhythms studio because I have shifted to my Urban Rhythms for a little while as I move into this fall semester / season here in the Northern Hemisphere. I hope that you're all doing well wherever this finds you, whenever this finds you. I am here today chatting with you about some transiting energy, some really big transiting energy that I just want to name and address and say a few words about, because I think one of the lovely things about working with astrology when we come into the bigger cycles, so outside of those kind of 2-week lunar cycles that I always make videos with the new and the full moon, is when we are working as consciously as we can sometimes with the bigger cycles, and Pluto is a bigger cycle. So I would like to chat about what's going on with Pluto over the next, I'm going to really focus on the next 4 months. So this is again, so in the Northern Hemisphere, we're really working with this season as we come into the autumn equinox. That's going to carry us into winter solstice, and we're going to reverse that. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're coming into your spring equinox. That's going to bring you into summer. And Pluto is soul deep. Pluto is soul deep. And it's really helpful, I think, to just check in with what's going on with Pluto, especially when Pluto is in a transitional phase, and Pluto is in a transitional phase. So if this is your first time on my channel, welcome. I am here talking, sharing these Madrona Pulse teachings, which are all about astrology, interweaving with spirituality on these journeys that we're on for healing, thriving, embodying joy, and also all the other things like grief and loss, but also not creating a binary between them. And I think astrology is so wonderful, especially Pluto, for helping us to kind of let go of this learned, conditioned, either or binary mindset that we can get stuck in, because that is how mainstream society, especially media and conditioning, works. And astrology helps us come into this language of what is, which for me is also what spirituality is all about. So that in a nutshell is about what my channel is about, but it's also what Pluto is about. So please do subscribe if this is your first time here. And I would like to check in with a timeline, okay, first. And I do have my notes here, so I'm going to look down a little bit, because when I'm dealing with dates, I use notes. I tend to be more of a just flowing with words, but dates, I like to have my notes. So Pluto is retrograde in the final degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so the great transition that I was alluding to is that we are living in the shift of Pluto moving from Capricorn. We're entered in 2008, and we're entering into the Pluto and Aquarius phase, which is going to last roughly 20 years. We've had a taste of Pluto in Aquarius, and then Pluto went back into these final degrees of Capricorn. And now is a really important time to check in, because any time that Pluto is kind of in the process of shifting signs, it is a great liminal time. It is absolutely a time of breakdown, ideally breakdown for that breakthrough scenario. And yet we're talking about this individually and collectively. So in our individual lives, you know, sometimes we can see the way a breakdown is working towards a breakthrough. Other times it's not so clear. Same with the collective. Ultimately, though, Pluto, who is in this case, you know, representing the soul drive that has to manifest in a collective level, that includes cycles of death and rebirth, that includes cycles of transmutation and moving out of one phase of existence and into another. Pluto is very, very deep energy. It's also energy that is often representing the unconscious individually and collectively in the process of becoming conscious. And that's often what its kind of breakdown is for. Noting here, though, that breakdown, while in, sometimes that can have a negative connotation, the idea is that things have to break down in order for a new version to exist. And that's part of the Pluto paradigm, but that's also especially part of Pluto shifting signs. And so as Pluto is doing this, what are we seeing breaking down? We're seeing Capricorn things breaking down. The structures that society has been modeled on. The structures that society has been modeled on that are no longer serving, the ideologies that have created the boundaries of how we make sense of identity, social organization, the way that an individual learns about oneself within social organization. The names that we could give to this are very much things like patriarchy, things like colonialism, capitalism, and the way that all three of those entwine. These are the big names of the ideologies that play out in every facet of life that we have constructed society around, which therefore absolutely is how we also form a sense of identity. And that's breaking down as Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius, which is hopefully going to create social systems that are more about the collective drive, so that the very nature of power is changing. And Pluto is aligned with power, in that we are shifting into hopefully paradigms that are more collectively driven. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about the Pluto Capricorn versus Pluto Aquarius because I have other videos of that and I'll link them below, but because I really want to focus on what we can come into awareness of in our own lives and our own journeys over the next 4 months. Okay, so now Pluto is retrograde. Pluto is going to continue on its retrograde through the final degrees, those 3 final degrees of Capricorn, until October 10th of 2023. Then when Pluto is at 27 degrees and 53 minutes, it's going to station direct, and it's going to go back into Aquarius in January 2024. It's going to move forward into Aquarius. Then it's going to go into its retrograde in May again of 2024. It's going to come back through those first few degrees of Aquarius, and then it is going to go back into Capricorn in September 2024. Then it's going to go back up to 29 degrees and 38 minutes. So it's dipping back into that 29th degree of Capricorn. Then it's going to station direct in October of 2024. And it's going to move forward. And then in November of 2024, it moves back into Aquarius, and we are done with Pluto and Capricorn. Okay. And then we enter into our roughly 20 years of Pluto and Aquarius energies. So what that means is that this next, especially these next 4 months, let's say, before Pluto goes back into Aquarius in January, are a major shifting timeline. We're talking major timelines, major breakdowns, because this is part of the finale. Because especially if you have personal planets or points or asteroids angles at the 27 and 28 and also 29 degree of Capricorn, or of Cancer, or of Aries, or of Libra. And sticking close there to 27, 28, and 29, because that's in this very direct orb. This is absolutely affecting you very personally. You've been working with the Pluto energy and you're coming into a culmination. But if we have points there, this culmination of shifting is also very aligned with this collective shifting. So you want to pay attention to what you're being called to. And also because during these next 4 months, when Pluto is already moving very, very slowly now. as I'm making this. It's going to continue moving slowly towards October 10th. Then it's going to station direct. We're never going to have Pluto going over this, those final minutes of 27 degrees, the entire degree of 28 that it's going to go over as it's going direct. And then it's going to move into 29th degree, all the way up to what did I say? 27, 29, 38. Okay. Everything before that, never going to come back there. So there's this final closing, and this is regardless of whether we have points there or not, wherever this falls in our chart. So you absolutely want to be working with the house that you have these final degrees of Capricorn energy in. Something in there is breaking down so that new ground and new boundaries of knowing and understanding, ultimate meaning of Capricorn energy, can be manifested for the rest of your life. Okay. And then we're going to work with Pluto in Aquarius. And then we're going to have that final taste of the 29th degree in 2024. And then we're going to move on with it completely. But so these next few months, as Pluto's going slowly to its turnaround point and then moves forward, it's like some breaks might be going on within ourselves. And as that breaking is happening, there's also potential timeline jumping, because this is also happening during eclipse season. Okay, so we have our first eclipse coming on October 14th, which is happening in Libra. That's a solar eclipse at 21 degrees Libra. And then we have our second eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse, is on October 28th. Excuse me, at 5 degrees of Taurus. And so when these eclipses are happening, Pluto is still square the nodes, because that's the other piece. As all of this is going on, Pluto is squaring those nodes who are now in Aries and Libra. So this is also why we know that for individually and collectively, this breakdown that Pluto is trying to facilitate within the final degrees of Capricorn is ultimately opening up opportunities and windows for the paradigm shift, for timelines to rapidly shift. This happened with our previous eclipse season in April and May, and now we're having it. And Pluto is square the nodes. It's about a 3-degree orb there. And Pluto square the nodes now. Before, Pluto was in Aquarius. Now Pluto is just gone direct right before that first eclipse. And it's moving forward through that final journey of these degrees of Capricorn, where it will not return to. So this is just opportunity for the new ideas, for the new visions, for the new alignments. What in our own life do we really want to let go of in terms of how we have aligned our own lives, our own sense of purpose, our own sense of destiny, even our own sense of finances, our own sense of success, to outdated models of social organization that are not serving us individually or the collective. Social power has been so condensed into such a small group of people, and it's been kept that way partly by designing, ideas of celebrity culture, mentalities of scarcity where only a few can have certain ideas or identities or thriving in a certain way. And Pluto entering in Aquarius wants to just say none of that. It wants new types of economies. It wants new values of how we value our time, how we value each other, how we value our resources. Yes, technology is part of that. Pluto into Aquarius and technology is a whole different conversation. I'm not going to go into that now. And I did promise that I would bring in a media scholarship lens into that, which I will do at some point. It's such a window for change and opportunity. And so wherever you have these final degrees of of Capricorn, especially as we come into this next season, especially as we come into eclipse season, I think we also really want to be quite conscious about saying goodbye. And there absolutely could be grief coming up. Grief is also part of the Pluto archetype, because Pluto is all the depths, it's all the bits and the things that we aren't taught to look at. It's the things we're taught to actually be quite afraid of, yet when we look at them, then we see that they're a whole gateway into a whole different way of living. But that often involves grief, and especially because we are, like, literally, Pluto is saying goodbye to certain structures and boundaries of meaning making and knowing. We are doing that as well. And so I think this is a wonderful time to actually be quite intentional, possibly with the bigger things, you know, and this could be the way that we've related to our sense of self, the way that we've aligned ourselves to ideas of work, ideas of success, the way that that's been brought up through our family, the way that, you know, all of these things that we can't, but, you know, even when we consider ourselves countercultural or not involved in mainstream, these ideologies are still the roots that most of us have been brought up in, that have functioned within. And there's things that are just dying, breaking down, that we don't need to carry with us in our manifestation of moving forward on such a deep soul level. And this is going to come up when we enter eclipse season, and I'm going to have all different videos about eclipse season. But I just really wanted to put this out there so that we're just thinking about these deep themes and being conscious with them as we come into these seasons of change that are upon us. So sending great love and warmth and comfort amidst the changes, comfort amidst the grief, comfort amidst the excitement. Even if changes are happening that we're excited about, that can still spark anxiety, that can, you know. Also, just one last plug, that this type of energy with Pluto, especially if it is impacting you personally, can also be exhausting, like a bone deep exhaustion. So we want to rest. We want to schedule in rest time. If we're kind of like, if you look at your chart and you see it's impacting you directly, you definitely want to schedule in some rest and just listen to the body. Because again, this is Earth energy. This is Capricorn, and just go slowly. Take care.